If anyone has a dream out there, just know that I'm living proof that they do come true. Thank you so much to the Academy. I'm so grateful for this. And Daddy, this is for you.
Kim Basinger once made all of Hollywood go wild. She was a Bond girl, a Playboy beauty, the seductive star who scorched the screen in 9.5 weeks, and an Oscar-winning actress. But today, at 71, she lives behind closed doors, avoiding cameras, skipping red carpets, even locking herself inside her home for months at a time out of fear of crowds. From the dazzling spotlight to a life that has nearly vanished, what happened? She was once sued into bankruptcy, shunned by Hollywood, endured a divorce so explosive it shocked America with a leaked audio of her yelling at her daughter. And just when everyone thought Kim had crumbled, she quietly returned, only to do voice work, hidden from view. She was once a sex symbol on screen, yet ended up haunted by a strange fear, the fear of being seen. This is no longer a story about a movie star. It's the survival journey of a woman swallowed by the very spotlight she once ruled. Now, Kim Basinger has disappeared again, for a reason no one expected. Stay with us. The story behind it is more shocking than any role she ever played. Early life. Camilla Ann Basinger was born on December 8, 1953, in Athens, Georgia. The third of 5 children, Kim grew up between two extremes. A father who had once been a passionate jazz musician, but worked as a loan manager to support the family, and a mother who had been a model, dancer, and competitive swimmer, performing in Esther Williams-style aquatic musicals, but eventually chose a life of motherhood and homemaking. From an early age, Kim lived in a world filled with music, humor, and performance energy, yet she herself suffered from debilitating shyness. Her parents enrolled her in dance classes, hoping it would help her come out of her shell. But even growing up in a family of artists, Kim couldn't bring herself to order at a restaurant, couldn't answer questions in class, and once fainted from the stress of speaking in front of a crowd. Everything began to shift in 1971 when she won the Athens Junior Miss pageant. It was the first time she stood on a stage before hundreds of people and held her ground. She didn't cry, she wasn't afraid, she didn't collapse. That night, for the first time, Kim realized she could exist under the gaze of others and still stay standing. She once recalled, "I didn't really care about winning. I just cared about standing there, singing the song and not fainting." But what many don't know is this. What drew her to cinema wasn't fame or glamour, it was her father's face. He was the only one in the family who visibly showed emotion when captivated by someone on screen. I think that's the real reason I became an actress. I wanted to see that look in my father's eyes, the look he had when he believed in someone up there on the screen. Early career. Kim quickly became a model with the Ford Modeling Agency, one of the most prestigious firms at the time. She appeared in national ad campaigns, graced major magazines, and was even chosen as the cover face for a rock album by the band Survivor. With her cinematic face and distinctive presence, Kim stood out among hundreds of other models in no time. But despite the success, she admitted she never truly loved the job. "It was so hard going from one contract to another and constantly facing my own appearance. I couldn't take it. I felt like I was suffocating." Modeling didn't frighten her, but it made her feel lost. Each passing day was a test, a judgment, a silent appraisal of one thing only: how she looked. Eventually, she chose to walk away from it all and chase what she truly wanted: acting. Kim enrolled at the William Esper Studio, a place where classes didn't teach you how to pose, but forced you to dig deep into raw emotion. She began auditioning for television, taking nameless bit parts, starting from scratch. Career success. After years of studying acting and relentless auditioning, Kim Basinger began with supporting roles and answered a question many skeptical viewers had. Just how far could a beautiful model go as an actress? Instead of waiting for a big role, Kim created her own opportunity. In 1981, she appeared in Playboy, not to shock, but to shatter prejudice. At a time when models were seen as mere decorative vases, that photo shoot was her direct statement. I have the right to step into cinema. And it worked. After that spread, directors began to take notice, not just for her looks, but for her initiative and daring. In 1983, Kim starred in Never Say Never Again opposite Sean Connery, playing Bond girl Domino Patachi. It was her first leading role in a major feature film. The movie grossed over $160 million worldwide and put Kim on the global cinematic map as Hollywood's newest sex symbol. But instead of staying safely within that image, Kim consistently chose challenging roles. In The Natural, 1984, she starred alongside Robert Redford as Memo Paris, a sharp, emotional, and unpredictable woman. The role earned her a Golden Globe nomination, and more importantly, for the first time, critics began to regard her as a serious actress. In 1986, Kim sparked major controversy by accepting the lead in 9.5 Weeks, a psychological erotic drama portraying a dominant, submissive relationship between Elizabeth Basinger and John, Mickey Rourke. This wasn't a typical sexy movie. Scenes like blindfolds, shower sex, or food games were filmed head-on, sensual yet cold, devoid of any Hollywood-style romance. The theme, a woman losing control in a toxic relationship, deeply divided audiences. Elizabeth gradually lost her emotional grip, drawn into psychological games, with several scenes bordering on consensual coercion. The 1980s was a time when feminism was finding its voice, and the film was criticized as a regression. Beyond shock value, it also faced censorship issues. In the US, 9.5 Weeks received an R rating and nearly got rated X, equivalent to adult films. Countries like Canada, the UK, and many across Asia demanded extensive cuts or outright banned it. Even in the US, some theaters refused to screen it due to family values. The result, the film flopped at the US box office. Too dark, too cold. But in Europe, especially France, Italy, and Germany, 9.5 Weeks was hailed as a deep, provocative work of erotic art and quickly became a cult classic among cinephiles. Still, the cost of that fame was steep. After the film, Kim Basinger was typecast as a sex bomb, which limited her access to mainstream roles for years. While she never denied the film's artistic merit, she later admitted, "I don't regret it, but I gave up something big because of that movie." 3 years later, Kim stepped into the blockbuster world with Tim Burton's Batman, 1989, playing journalist Vicky Vale alongside Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson. The film grossed over $400 million worldwide and became a pop culture phenomenon of the late 80s. For the first time, Kim reached commercial stardom, recognized not only for her beauty, but for carrying a major box office hit. But her true peak came in 1997 with LA Confidential. As Lynn Bracken, a high-end escort with a haunting, vintage sadness straight out of 1940s noir, Kim transformed. Her performance was subtle yet piercing, restrained yet unforgettable. For this role, she won the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, along with a Golden Globe and SAG Award, cementing her status as one of the most respected actresses of the decade. After that pinnacle, Kim appeared less frequently, but every role bore her signature. In 8 Mile, 2002, she played an unstable, impoverished mother, a raw portrayal far removed from her earlier screen persona. The Door in the Floor, 2004, was a layered psychological drama where she conveyed quiet despair with haunting realism. Cellular, 2004, and later action films proved she still had the sharpness and energy to lead. From a model dismissed as shallow, Kim Basinger broke through layer after layer of bias to reach the heights of both art and commerce. She wasn't the loudest, she wasn't the flashiest, but every role she played was a deep incision, into prejudice, into limits, into the fear that had weighed on her since childhood. But away from the camera, Kim was no longer the one writing her own script. Her personal life took a very different turn, fragile, tangled, and far harder to control. Personal life and painful tragedies. Before fame found her, Kim Basinger had brief relationships with model Tim Saunders, photographer Dale Robinette, and football star Joe Namath. These romances left little public trace, except for one thing. Kim was easily moved, but just as easily retreated into herself. In 1980, while filming Hard Country, she met makeup artist Ron Snyder, the man who would become her husband for nearly a decade. It was the early phase of Kim's acting career, and Ron was by her side, caring for her when she was still unfamiliar with life in the spotlight. That same year, Kim was diagnosed with agoraphobia after experiencing a panic attack in a grocery store. She remained housebound for 6 months, avoiding all public events. Ron quit his job to stay home and care for her, even legally changing his last name to Britton, after Kim asked him to pick a surname starting with B so she could keep a familiar initial in the entertainment world. At first, the marriage appeared peaceful, but by the mid-1980s, cracks began to form. According to Ron's memoir, Longer Than Forever, 1998, in 1986, he discovered that Kim was romantically involved with Richard Gere, her co-star in No Mercy. After finding handwritten letters between the two, Ron quietly followed his wife to a restaurant, where he claimed to have witnessed them kiss. Though they didn't separate immediately, the fracture lingered until 1989, when they officially divorced just before Christmas. Kim agreed to pay her ex-husband $9,000 a month in spousal support for 8 years. In an industry that thrives on personal drama, she remained silent, neither denying nor defending anything. Only once, when asked about her first marriage, did Kim simply say, "It was a part of my life, not the most pleasant part, but one I can't erase." It seemed that the collapse of her marriage left Kim feeling unmoored, leading her to dive quickly into a string of brief, intense relationships. One of the most talked about was with Batman producer Jon Peters. In an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, Peters recalled, "Kim was in an abusive marriage at the time. One day I saw it firsthand and stepped in to protect her. From that moment we became friends and then lovers." Peters didn't shy away from mentioning the tension with actor Michael Keaton, Kim's co-star in Batman, saying, "Michael felt pushed aside. He was Batman, and I was just a hairdresser who knew how to talk to women. But Kim and I were living together on set. She even helped me write the third act of the script." After the whirlwind with Jon Peters, Kim Basinger continued to date men from various walks of life, including Prince, the musical genius and irreplaceable cultural icon. Reflecting on their unique bond after Prince's death in 2016, Kim shared with the Daily Beast, smiling wistfully, "I really didn't have any boundaries. I lived that time fully. It was a beautiful, emotional moment, filled with memories that will never go away. I didn't set limits for myself. Let's just call it that." Beyond Prince, she also dated fashion designer Alexio Gandara and fitness trainer Phil Walsh. Though none of these relationships lasted, they were all part of Kim Basinger's journey of freedom and self-reinvention after the heartbreaks of her early years. She didn't settle down with anyone until Alec Baldwin came along. They met in 1990 on the set of The Marrying Man. Alec, young, smart, charming, and wildly unpredictable, was like a storm that broke through Kim's quiet shell. She thought she had found a man strong enough to protect her, warm enough to heal her, and mature enough to be a father by her side. They married 3 years later without a prenuptial agreement and welcomed their daughter Ireland in 1995. At first it seemed like a fairy tale, but Alec's explosive temper clashed with Kim's fragile emotional world. She had long battled anxiety and psychological vulnerability, and the marriage slowly began to unravel. In 2001, Kim filed for divorce. But the breakup was just the beginning of a dark, bitter chapter that would stretch on for the next 7 years. The fight for custody of Ireland became one of the most expensive and acrimonious legal battles in Hollywood that decade, racking up nearly $3 million in legal fees and resulting in an almost impossible arrangement. Alec had to attend anger management, was limited to just 90 minutes of phone calls per day with his daughter, and Kim was required to email weekly reports detailing Ireland's activities. But everything spiraled out of the courtroom in 2007 when a voicemail Alec left for then 11-year-old Ireland was leaked and spread across America. In the recording, he called her a rude, thoughtless little pig because she didn't answer the phone. The nation was shocked. Alec raged. Kim remained silent. And Ireland, a young girl barely into adolescence, found herself caught in the center of a media firestorm. Alec later issued a public apology. "I'm sorry for losing my temper with my child. I've been through so much fighting for the right to be a father. Some people will do anything to destroy the bond between a father and his child." Despite the hurt, Ireland defended her father. He said that out of anger. "To me, it was just, okay, Dad, whatever." In 2015, she even posted a humorous photo holding a book titled "If I Were a Pig," captioned, "Of course I'd be a rude, thoughtless little pig." But the damage to Kim wasn't so easily mended. She once described the divorce as agonizing and cruelly public, to the point where she confined herself inside her home for months, not stepping outside, not receiving guests, not answering the phone, gripped by fear of the world beyond her walls. In an interview, she candidly said, "Divorce always hurts the child no matter how you justify it. And our divorce, it was a nightmare." In the aftermath, Kim chose to raise her daughter in her own way. "I wanted her to be free, to write on the walls if she wanted, to grow up with love, with light, with animals and friends. I didn't want her to grow up in fear." And Ireland, despite all the chaos, always stood by her mother. She became a model, an actress, and Kim's closest companion, including on Red Table Talk, where the two of them openly revisited their painful past for the first time. Ireland once said, "I've always had a really great relationship with my mom. She's the only one who never let go." And maybe that sacred bond was what kept Kim Basinger standing, through storms that never seemed to stop in her life. However, the wounds of her personal life weren't the only ones she had to endure. Kim would soon face another blow, one that came from her own choices in her career. In 1991, with her career soaring after the success of Batman and the lingering buzz from 9.5 Weeks, Kim Basinger stood at a strange crossroads. A provocative, independent film script titled Boxing Helena, surreal, metaphor-laden, and psychologically disturbing. The story revolved around a psychotic surgeon obsessed with a beautiful woman. After being rejected by her, he kidnaps her and amputates her limbs one by one, all in the name of love. The film, directed by Jennifer Lynch, daughter of David Lynch, was expected to be a bold, darkly meditative piece of 1990s art cinema. Initially, Kim verbally agreed to take on the project. She met the director, read an early draft, and became the golden name that helped production company Mainline Pictures secure funding. But when a more detailed version of the script was delivered, everything changed. Kim felt the content was too dark, too twisted, something that could destroy the image she was carefully building. A sensual, intelligent, and sophisticated icon, not a dismembered victim in a film riddled with violence and deviant sexuality. She pulled out, never anticipating the storm that would follow. Mainline Pictures filed a lawsuit. Studio president Carl Mazzaconi publicly claimed Kim's withdrawal had collapsed the project, cost hundreds of people their jobs, and scared off investors. She agreed, met the director, said she was in. A star can't just be beautiful and famous. They have to be accountable for their word. The legal battle unfolded under public scrutiny. The court refused to accept that a verbal agreement was meaningless. They ruled Kim's actions constituted a breach of good faith, a novel but strictly enforced legal concept. In 1993, a jury found Kim guilty of fraud and bad faith, ordering her to pay a staggering $8.9 million in damages, $7.4 million in losses, and $1.5 million in penalties. It was an unprecedented verdict for a Hollywood actress. Kim's attorney fired back. The jury didn't like a star. She was too famous, too beautiful, too successful. This is the price of walking into a courtroom wrapped in glamour. The press dubbed it the lawsuit that rocked Hollywood's professional ethics. As for Kim, she vanished from the media. In 1993, she officially filed for bankruptcy. She sold her house, offloaded shares, and withdrew from major projects. The producers who once courted her now turned away. The name Kim Basinger became a warning in the industry. Even with an Oscar, a star who doesn't honor her word could drag an entire film into the abyss. It wasn't until 1995 that Kim quietly reached an out-of-court settlement. The final payout was significantly reduced, but the damage was done. She lost millions, lost the role, lost the industry's trust, and perhaps most devastatingly, lost control over how the public saw her. It was the turning point that knocked Kim Basinger out of the A-list. No more box office blockbusters, no more prestigious invitations. She began choosing indie films, living quietly, trying to piece back a shattered career that had unraveled because of what seemed like just one role. Her reputation tarnished, her reliability questioned by Hollywood. But rather than fight back loudly, Kim Basinger chose another path, a quieter one, less glamorous, yet one that still proved she had never lost her strength as an actress. There was another chapter, quieter, less visible, but one that left a lasting scar. Kim Basinger's harrowing experience on the set of 9.5 Weeks in 1986. While the film made her a global icon, behind the sensual facade lay a truth that she would later call the most frightening thing I've ever been through in my life. In an interview with the New York Times, Kim confessed, "After that movie ended, I didn't want to see a single person I'd worked with again. If I saw the guy who brought the coffee, I'd kill him." What sounded like a dark joke was, in fact, a raw expression of trauma that never quite healed. Director Adrian Lyne and co-star Mickey Rourke deliberately manipulated Kim's emotions to achieve what they considered authenticity on screen. She was forbidden from interacting with Rourke off-camera, maintaining a constant sense of tension for the 10-week shoot. Lyne described her as an instinctual actress, someone who doesn't really act, she just reacts, and used every trick to agitate her psyche, including whispering instructions for Rourke to hold her down until she cried, screamed, and was slapped back. Kim initially turned down the role after a humiliating audition in which she had to perform like a prostitute, begging for money in a complicated sexual game. But she eventually relented after receiving 24 roses from Lyne and Rourke. It was a decision that cost her dearly, both physically and emotionally. She was injured during a rain-drenched staircase scene in Manhattan, a fall that left a permanent scar on her arm. But far more painful were the invisible wounds. "I didn't know who I was anymore," she said. "Mickey kept provoking me. Sometimes I hated him. Sometimes I was confused. My husband and I had a terrible time throughout that film." Their marriage would end just 3 years later. What stung even more was the director's distorted view of her, calling her not intellectual, saying she doesn't read books, and claiming she doesn't act, just reacts. She didn't respond publicly, didn't lash out, but for years she stayed silent, not because she forgot, but because she didn't want to relive it. It wasn't until 26 years later that she saw Rourke again, in a small film called Black November. By then, the fear had faded, but the memory had not. More than any courtroom judgment, That experience showed Kim the brutal vulnerability of women in the industry. And perhaps, from that very pain, came her fierce resolve to protect the voiceless, from slaughtered animals to silenced actors enduring emotional abuse in the name of art. It wasn't until the early 2000s that she returned to the screen with more psychologically layered, mature roles. She was no longer the sex symbol of decades past, but she carried a quiet, formidable depth. Her performances became steadier, less defiant, infused with lived experience. But after 2010, the name Kim Basinger gradually faded into the background. She took on smaller roles, like Elena Lincoln in 50 Shades Darker, 2017, largely out of curiosity or a desire to avoid total obscurity. No longer basking in the spotlight, Kim shifted toward more private endeavors, voice work, writing children's stories, and living a reclusive, media-shy life. It was a purposeful withdrawal, a conscious decision by someone who had once been devoured by Hollywood and who now simply wanted to step away from the whirlwind to embrace what truly mattered in life. Legacy and impact. Some forms of beauty leave you breathless. Some kinds of pain leave you haunted. Kim Basinger, in some strange, unforgettable way, is both. Throughout the 80s and 90s, she was etched into the memory of millions. A flawless face, eyes filled with uncertain sadness, and a sensuality that never needed to try too hard. But if you think she was merely a Hollywood sex bomb, then you've missed the point. Behind that beauty was a soul once terrified by camera flashes. A woman who stood in court because she dared to say no to a film that might have destroyed her. A single mother who battled the court system, not just to protect her child, but to hold on to herself. No PR stunts, no tricks. Just a woman brave enough to live honestly in a world that thrives on illusion. Kim Basinger never chased fame. She quietly stepped off the stage without fanfare or farewell, yet left behind a space no one else could fill. What she inspired wasn't ambition. It was resilience. It wasn't fame. It was dignity. And that is why, to this day, even if she rarely appears on screen, Kim Basinger remains a name Hollywood cannot ignore. Current life. These days, Kim Basinger has all but vanished from noisy Hollywood. No more red carpet events, no more magazine covers. She has chosen a quieter life with her longtime partner, celebrity hairstylist Mitch Stone, whom she's been dating since 2014. The couple stays out of the spotlight, rarely making public appearances, though they were once spotted wearing gold bands, sparking rumors of a deeper commitment beyond words. For Kim, love no longer needs to be proven or announced, just quietly lived side by side, day by day. From stage lights to soft sunsets, Kim has stepped into the background, spending most of her time in Hawaii, a place where she's found peace after years of exhaustion. But she hasn't disappeared completely. In 2022, she participated in Lit Project 2, Flux, an experimental short film released as an NFT, directed by Peter Bogdanovich. It was an elegant, creative punctuation mark, ending her screen career on her own terms, experimental, independent, and free. In 2023, Kim drew public attention again when she made a surprise appearance at a baby shower for her future grandchild, her daughter, Ireland Baldwin, expecting a child with musician RAC. In photos widely shared online, Kim wore a simple outfit, smiled warmly, and held hands with Mitch Stone. Fans flooded the comments. "Your mom is amazing, mine never would, and it's beautiful to see you so happy." Kim, radiant with joy at becoming a grandmother, shared the sonogram from her own pregnancy 27 years earlier, as if closing a perfect maternal circle. She even revealed that her soon-to-be granddaughter was, in her words, another little princess coming into the world. Beyond this new family role, Kim remains committed to her long-held beliefs, protecting life, especially those without a voice. A lifelong vegetarian, she has posed for numerous campaigns for PETA, Farm Sanctuary, and Last Chance for Animals. She doesn't just speak, she acts. She helped advocate for U.S. legislation protecting farm animals and has persistently condemned the dog meat trade in parts of Asia. In March 2023, when Jakarta officially banned dog meat sales, Kim publicly expressed gratitude and urged other nations to follow. Dogs are not food. They are loyal companions who serve humanity. They must be protected from the unimaginable cruelty of the dog meat trade. In a world where fame is often measured by visibility, Kim has taken the opposite path, living kindly in silence, doing the right thing without asking for applause. Her current estimated net worth is around $20 million, neither flashy nor excessive. Just enough for a life defined by compassion and the wisdom to let go at the right time. Today, Kim Basinger is no longer Hollywood's muse. She is simply herself, a woman who has weathered every storm and finally found peace in the ordinary. Kim Basinger doesn't need a comeback to be remembered. What she's lived through, from the spotlight to manipulation, from Oscar glory to bankruptcy, already tells the story of a woman who dared to live truthfully, dared to sacrifice, and dared to walk away. She's not perfect. But who needs perfection when it's her scars that make us see ourselves in her? What do you think of Kim Basinger's journey? Has anything in her silence, her pain, or her quiet strength ever made you pause? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you won't miss the next story. Another journey, another heartbreak, another kind of courage, maybe even one that mirrors your own.